Okay, so we are live on Facebook. Hi, everyone. And I am going to record for all those who are not able to join us today. Okay, so you will have to answer that you agree. Okay, and Deborah is coming in from Vancouver Island, Victoria. So hi, Deborah. And there she is. So welcome to the special online conversation hosted by Move into the Future and the Wize Move Society, the online community for the over 50 generation. The Wize generation is growing rapidly. They're living longer, are longer healthy and active, and are better educated than ever. There are many reasons why this generation should play a significant role in the economy and in society, a lot longer than they expected when they started their career. So we believe that the over 50 generation has a significant role to play in the creation of the future. We just need to tap in the knowledge, experience, and wisdom. So with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on our Wize Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and the opportunities that the 50+ generation is facing, as well as how the members of the Wize Move Society work together to create the solutions and play an active role in society and the economy. So the Wize generation is very clear that they are not on their way out, but they are part of the future. So for those who joined us on Zoom, we love you to contribute to the conversation. So if you want to do so, please show yourself with your camera on. If you do not want to be seen, share your questions or comments in the chat. If you've joined us on Facebook, welcome everyone, and please share your feedback and questions in the comments. My name is Ingun, and I'm the founder of Move into the Future and the creator of the Wize Move Society. And I'm here today with my co-host, Tatiana Rowson from the UK, and our guest, Shainoor Khoja. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. So after a very successful international career, both in corporate and as an entrepreneur, Shane was confronted with the challenges of the seniors when she was taking care of her own mother. Seniors who still live in their own home and would like to stay there as long as possible. She turned the challenges into a solution, created an app, and is using technology for social good. So ladies, before we dive into the topic, I would like to give my co-host, Dr. Tatiana Rowson, the floor so she can share a bit more about her background and why this topic is really special to her. So Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingun. So good afternoon or good morning, everyone that's listening to us. So I am a psychologist and I am a researcher and an academic focused on midlife and beyond. So really interested to see how we develop as we age and above all, trying to debunk the myths around aging and the stereotypes that are not helpful to that growing population of over 50s. So I am a technology lover. So the idea of talking about an app and using technology really excites me. So it's a real pleasure, Shane, to have you here with us. I'm going to just pass you the mic. So let you introduce yourself as well and join us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ingun and Tatiana and Wize Move Society. We're really excited to be here, and I'm here today with my team at Thriving AI. You see Nirmana and Leila and LJ. We're a global team, an intergenerational team, and also a gender diverse team. So I'm very excited about that. But perhaps I'll just share a little bit about my own life to this point as I've been asked to. So I was born in Africa and I'm of Indian descent. And I moved to the UK when I was 5 years old as a refugee. So education was topmost in my mind. And in all the time that I was being educated, I always wanted to give back. And at school, I was really great at science and at sport. And quite by coincidence, obviously my parents, because I was Indian, wanted me to be a doctor. But I was doing voluntary work at St. Thomas's Hospital, and one day a patient was sent home without their walking frame, and it was on my bus route home. So I said, oh, I'll deliver it. And so hence I went to the physio department, saw the exercising going on, the manipulating going on, and thought, aha, this is the right thing for me. So I qualified as a physiotherapist and then had a 10-year career owning and operating clinics across 4 continents, where I touched older and younger people and was always interested in the needs of older people. I was also very lucky in securing 12 national health contracts in the UK. That's the state service. Which meant that I actually had to go to MBA school because I was no longer a physio in practice, but I was a businesswoman in the business of physiotherapy, which was really very different. And when I went to MBA school, I also realized that I was good at a bunch of other things. So when I reflect on my life, I don't think about it in terms of age. I think about it in terms of phases and where my life has led me. Anyway, fast forward, I spent over 15 years in Afghanistan working for the Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development, where we built the largest telecoms company called Rowson. And my role was specific to building technology for social good. So I did things like telemedicine in 2006. I brought M-Pesa to Afghanistan in 2007, e-learning, market prices for farmers, amongst other projects that involved kind of playgrounds, women's initiatives, and so forth. And that's where I learned the value of technology. And being a health practitioner myself, I did not want technology to replace the human touch. So I always looked at technology as an assistive tool rather than a replacement tool. Anyway, whilst I was conquering the world, I unfortunately lost my in-laws and I lost my father. And I was looking after my mother at distance. On one occasion, she fell and I didn't find her for 9 hours. And that's what brought me back to this segment in the West. Because what happened was she went from being fully independent, volunteering, cooking, cleaning, to falling and then ending up in hospital and ending up being fully dependent on me with 2 caregivers. And that disrupted her whole life. It changed her persona altogether, and it impacted my own life as well, because I was working as a mother, a wife, sitting on boards, etc. And so then I started searching for tools that would help me. And I found that this was an area, caregiving, especially for the elderly, that was very siloed, very fragmented, with very little investment. And so after 2 years of research, I started putting together a team. And it was really important to get the right team. So LJ, who you see here, is a business development expert, but he also has a very, very important story around caregiving. Layla does marketing. She has a caregiving story and is a caregiver as well. And Nirmana, who's our product manager, is also a caregiver. And when you look at us, if you looked at the numbers of our ages, they're all different. Mm-hmm. And so we bring those different perspectives. And so that's how we got to thriving. And we're at a place now where we have the application. It's basically, in simple terms, integrating health and social care, bringing everyone involved in care and support around the person being cared for, who is the thriver. And underpinning it is machine learning and AI that helps us learn about the different personas and how they interact and how they are feeling. So over time, the application becomes more intelligent and can target content better. And Ingun, if I have a moment, I'd love for LJ, Nirmana, and Layla just to give you a minute snippet of their life and why they're attracted to thriving. Thank you. LJ, do you want to fire away?
Yeah, I'll fire away. Hello, everyone. So my, I'll call it unique story, but I don't think it's by chance how I got here and how I ended up here working with Shane. Last year, my mother and father both passed away within a week of each other. And in that process, my mother was my father's primary caregiver. So when she became sick, it threw our lives and our schedules into a tizzy, so to speak. We didn't really know what to do. My wife and I, my sister and her husband, but we banded together, I would say, with the strength of our parents. And they kind of guided us through what to do. But it became very apparent as we were relying on each other that, hey, this is not normal. And others like us who are in the same situation may not have the resources, the time, and the money to become caregivers for their parents. So as a professional, daily, I would be over my parents' house. In 1 second, I'm administering care. In the second, I'm walking out the door the next minute and at my parents' table, the same table that I grew up with doing my homework, and I'm taking a conference call. And it became very draining. And it became, it was very tiring, right? Because we're trying to coordinate this care for our parents. But unfortunately, after about a 4 or 5 month battle, both of my parents passed away. And I just knew then that being there in those last days was very rewarding for me to say that I was there, and I didn't have to put that care upon someone else. That the fact that I was able to be there, my wife and I and my sister, but it became very apparent that that was the type of work that I wanted to do. I've been very successful in the industrial space my entire career, but I've never felt the same connection as I feel when we're on calls and we're doing the work that we're doing, because we know that it's impactful, and we know that there's others like us. So I'm willing to admit I'm 40 years old. So a lot of my friends are going through the same situation right now, and I see that I just happen to be one of the first people who lost their parents. But I understand that this is something that's going to happen, and realize the work we're doing, we can help. So, thank you.
Thanks, LJ. Nirmana, do you want to say a word, and then Layla can?
Yeah, sure. So by a profession, I'm a product manager, and I was always passionate about softwares and products which are helping us live healthier, and which are in general helping us to be more well. So meeting Shane was like a perfect combination, was like a perfect match between the two of us. Besides that, on my caring part story is that I'm caring for my grandparents. And I used to live with them in the same house for 27 years. And 2 years ago, I moved out, and not only to another street, but I moved to another continent. And now I'm caring for them like on a distance, which is really challenging. So being in this team and having the sense that I'm building a tool that is helping me to care better for them is really something amazing, and I'm really enjoying it.
Thanks, Nirmana. Layla, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I was introduced with the app before introducing the rest of the team, because I participated and wanted to try it while it was in beta testing. To be honest, I haven't heard about the similar app before, and I thought it's a really good thing, because I have an older father, and fortunately, he's still with us. He's still alive, and currently we are in the same city. But as it is with every person that is battling chronic illness, like every day is a specific experience, and it can get a really, as LJ said, draining, but also a bit frustrating, because you see how your relationship with your parent or parents is changing through time. Also, my father was very active. He had like multiple hobbies, and he was always a professor, a speaker. He was also director in his company. So he was accustomed to dealing with people and being in charge and driving here and there. And suddenly he was unable to go down the stairs because he would get dizzy and he would fall, and he had multiple injuries, and it took time until he accepted that he has to change his lifestyle. And this happened a few years ago, and now like situation is more and more serious, and now he's like majority of the day in bed. But for me, what this app actually enabled me to do is to the way I communicate with him, because for the last few years, like when you call your parents daily, I almost felt like a nurse rather than having this, let's say, call that I will share what happened to me. So it was kind of it's almost like investigating. How are you? Are you really okay? Are you just saying that? How is your blood pressure? Did you take all of your pills? He takes 16 pills. So it became a bit scripted. And while testing this app, I saw a feature of mood check-ins, and I saw that there is a possibility to set reminders, because if you ever had experience with people that are mostly in bed, they forget to stand up at least for 30 seconds or a minute, or if they're feeling particularly bad, they will not take water for the entire day. So these simple things really make this experience easier. Also, I know it's not the main thing of the app, but I will share it because it's something that is interesting for me. It's like these learning journeys. It seems weird, but it's a good conversation starter. Like he can say that he's looking at the videos of a specific things. I don't know. He has like every week he has some different interests. So he consumes a lot of specific YouTube content, and I think the algorithm is confused with him. But then I can actually go through the same learning journey or ask him what he thought about it. We can talk about topical things, not just, how are you and are you feeling good, and that I had a stressful day at a job, etc. And also, like my brother is also not living in the same country, so I'm the only child that is here with them. And this way of keeping in touch, even though you're in the same country, it eases the stress for me, because I have to travel, and I did travel a lot for my work, and I still, like in a typical week, have to go on 2 short trips. I don't have to, have a whole audio check-in with him and then stress that he didn't call or pick up. I feel more at ease and can concentrate on my stuff, because, for example, if you have a meeting like this or a call and something happened 3 hours ago, you cannot completely commit to the thing that you're doing. So I hope I didn't took too much time, but
sorry, Ingun, you can see that all the team is extremely passionate.
Yes, yeah, and that's good. What I do, and in a minute, I also would like to give Han van Doorn the opportunity to share a bit, because there is something similar there as well. What I do here in this conversation, and that is something that I think is happening to more and more people, the caregiving situation, having to take care of your parents. Maybe you just came out with a situation that you had to take care of your kids, or maybe still are, and then have to take over because, you immediately move into taking care of your parents. And since this generation is growing rapidly, and the whole healthcare system, here in the Netherlands, I know my mother is 87 and she's still living at home in her own house, and she doesn't really want to leave. But there should be some care. And I live 150 kilometers away. It's almost impossible to, I'm sorry, go there every other week, but it's almost impossible to just drive there if anything happens. But it is, I think these numbers grow amazingly. That's the responsibility of caregiving is with the children. Tatiana, can you say anything from research, what you've heard, what you're seeing? Can you?
This is one of the key elements that bring to the stress levels of over 50s is that being the sandwich generation, to be still caring for the children as they leave home later and later as well, because now that's being extended, infancy and adolescence being going until later, we as well having to care for our parents. And that adds to the pressure and the time that actually working life can be very demanding. So we might be moving to senior positions, we might have more responsibility at work, and on top of that, having all that going on in our personal life. I'm going to add to this as well, Ingun, because I think is important, is for women, many will be going through the menopause at that stage as well. So suffering with symptoms, suffering with fatigue, and having to deal with their own health transitions as they are doing all this caring. So that's quite a lot of data there to show that is a difficult time. I will connect that with something that Leila said, because it really resonated with me, that idea that the relationship with our parents go changing over time as well. So that's that as well. There's a bit of a loss there. So suddenly our parent, that person that cared for us and advised us and cheered us on our accomplishments and so on, suddenly is becoming more dependent. So that relationship is something that we grieve as well in that process. And I think that it's having extra support or developing that side of life that supports a very the elderly generation and support all the adults to look after them. It's absolutely essential for a fully functioning society to progress.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add to you, Tatiana, that when I'm very much about disrupting systems. And so when we built the app, we built it 3 generations. You can have your grandkids, your kids, your parent, and your grandparent, right, on the app. So there's longevity there, because when I become my mother's age, my daughter will be on it with me, and hopefully we'll have developed a rapport along that lines. But the other really critical, important piece of bringing in machine learning and AI is that our entire global healthcare system and social care system is built on a reactive model. You get old, you fall, then it kicks in. Whereas we can actually, there's lots of data that shows that prevention is actually cheaper, healthier, and it helps keep people in their homes. And so that is where I'd love to go in the end. But remember, when you're a startup, you're trying to get traction, and then you can't take on an entire system. But for example, in the US, there's value-based care that is beginning to take traction. And in the UK, you might be familiar with the integrated care services, which is integrating health and social care. So I'm hoping that, you know, all of us in this sector that really understand it and have experienced this firsthand can actually tackle this problem so that we actually get paid for being healthy rather than sick.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Very important. I do agree. Yes, Tatiana?
Yes, I was about to ask Shainoor, because Shainoor, just before we started the live, you mentioned how you commute different parts of the globe, so having access to different systems. And it's a question for you and your experience already to start building the app and starting disrupting. How invested are families in the care of their own relatives? Because I can say where I'm starting from, because I think if you're going to start breaking the barriers of age, family might be a good place to start.
Absolutely. So let me tell you that the real answer is I don't know. We're figuring that out. But what you find is that there are families that are deeply concerned and deeply involved with care. And I don't mean care at the deathbed, I just mean general welfare and well-being. And then there are, of course, those that, you know, might send a birthday card or a Christmas present and nothing more. I have interviewed individuals that live in retirement communities and care homes, which are beautiful, deluxe. And, you know, they're very animated and they answer their questions. And then when you ask them, you know, so, you know, do you feel lonely? You know, how often do your family come and see you, connect with you? That's when you get into comments like, it's lovely here. I have lots of friends and lots of contact, but I'm really lonely for my family. I think that there's that one problem. I think the second problem from an app perspective is that tackling the family is one route in, but also tackling people that are going into the home is another. And the issue that every app has is that, do you have the money to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all of that to get to the family? Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of resource to do that. So inevitably, you take a route that is a B2B2C route, so that you go to nurse practitioners, to home healthcare companies, in an effort to help them provide a better quality of care and engagement. So I don't know if I answered your question, but these are the kind of competing forces, and we are actually working our way through this. So any ideas, Hans, or anyone else, we'd be very keen to learn.
Yes, I would love to invite Han into the discussion, in the conversation, because I know, I've looked at your profile, we haven't met before, but I know there's something similar cooking or already developed. Can you share a bit about that?
Yes, let me introduce myself first.
Please.
I was born 84 years ago in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I joined IBM for 31 years in research and development. I have been married very happily for 50 years and have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. I have a lot of hobbies and do a lot of sports to stay vital. I was caregiver for my wife with dementia for 5 years. I have experienced that it is very, very heavy. And that was one of the triggers for my innovative project that I like to tell you a little bit about. Pretend I fell down the stairs. How long will it take before somebody finds me? I've seen that with my sister-in-law, Nettie. I called her, but she didn't pick up the phone. I went to her house and I found 3 days of newspapers behind the front door. We in the Netherlands get the newspaper delivered every day. So I went upstairs and I found her down the stairs. I will not tell you what I found there, but I learned that should not happen to me. My son Matthew called me regularly, and then he asked me, how are you chickens? And how is your vegetable garden? To say it very politely, he is not interested at all in that, but he was worried about his old father. So we both have a problem. What do you do when you have a problem? You sit down the table and discuss it. So I asked Matthew, what are your requirements? His requirements was an app with a traffic light, and when the traffic light is orange, is green, then it is okay with me. My requirements were very simple. I do not want anything at all, like many old men. I do not wear a button, something around my wrist, no cameras, no sensors, nothing at all. But I need 100% privacy. We both had a couple of months and we find finally a solutions. And we built that and we tested that system in 100 locations in the Netherlands for 3 months. And it worked perfect. I hear your questions. How does that work? Like anybody else, I use electricity. I boil my eggs, I prepare tea, coffee, etc. I have built a self-learning system that learns the pattern of the electricity consumption of each individual device in my home. And this system takes about 3 weeks and then he knows. And he updates that regularly, daily. When the system detects a deviation, he don't call Matthew because then my privacy is gone. So the system calls me. And when I do not pick up the phone, then there is something wrong. And the traffic light will change from green into orange, and Matthew get a notification. This free app, Are You Okay Today, has changed my life. I feel safe again in my own home. Thank you.
Wow, that sounds really amazing. You know, I'm an engineer. I love tech. So now, and I think yes, this is, you know, this is so simple. What do you need? What do I need? You know, and what is happening in my house, in my environment that notifies that, okay, something is wrong. So let's check first that person, otherwise that person. And you don't need that alarm around your neck and all the other things. Wow, sounds really great. I love to hear your ideas, Shane.
Well, no, this is exactly, you know, we're looking at non-intrusive mapping of in the home. And I'm just thinking we could really shortcut by talking with Han and integrating the two things, because when we spoke to older people, they expressed the same concerns that Han has, which is, you know, I don't want a camera. I don't want Wi-Fi that sees my skeletal movements. I don't want to be wearing a tag. And my mother had an emergency response pendant, but she wasn't wearing it the day she fell. So, you know, and we know that there's only 3 or 4% usage of those. And also wearables are something that they object to, right? And they take it off when they go for a shower and then they don't put it on. And exactly. I have to think myself that, you know, 30 years on, do I really want somebody to be tracking me like that? But if it's light bulbs and plugs, then basically you're switching things on, just like Hans said. If the plug is plugged in and the kettle is plugged in, when that goes on, then I know my mum's routine, right? That at 9 o'clock, she'll make a cup of tea, she'll then watch TV, you know, she'll go onto her computer and then she'll take a nap or whatever it is, go out the door. So these non-intrusive sensors are a really good way of learning the pattern. And then if there is a change in that pattern, a significant change, not just one day she decided she was really tired or, you know, decided to go out for breakfast. You don't want that to raise alarms. So there's a little bit of learning to be done there, but I think this is the way of the future, because Han is an example of a very healthy individual of years, right? And I think that's what our research showed us, that we met 60-year-olds that were tech challenged. We met 90-year-olds that were excellent at tech. So I think that's kind of the hard part of serving this segment, that it isn't one size fits all. I think that's the issue. And I don't know, Han, if you agree with that when you looked around, there were varying levels of sort of competency with tech. So I think that the key issue here also, just to turn the conversation a little, and perhaps Tatiana can comment on this, that there is a stereotypical view in general that older people find tech very difficult. But actually, I've worked in the telecoms industry, and we've done our own research. The issue today is not that they find tech difficult. It's the fact that not much tech is built for their needs, right? And I wear glasses. Without my glasses, I can't see my mobile phone very well. So these are normal issues, and they need to be addressed with design, proper design. And in fact, our first version of our application was built, and we got the message that, hey, this is good, but actually we want vibrant colors. We want a slightly larger font. We don't want it dummified because we're not dummies, but we want it clear and visual and not too much script, etc. And so this is where, Nirmana really came to a fore, because she, for every feature, is like, users, what do the users think? Which is great, because that is who we are building for, and whose sort of input we need. And so usability, visual graphics, and simplicity, those were the really key things in what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shane, for calling out of the stereotypes on tech and aging, because I think that is a big ingrained one and is not exactly true. Some people are good with tech, other people are not good with tech. But the fact is, as you mentioned yourself, the apps or the products and applications are not necessarily with the user in mind when it's developed. So, and I think that goes to several other things as well. And I'm sure, I'm aware we have Deborah in the call with us, and Mary Jane as well. And Deborah might feel that in her own field, people associate aging with a less ability of doing your exercise or yoga, and actually again is a stereotype. So should we invite Deborah and Mary Jane to join the conversation and say hello? Deborah, would you like to come in, as I already picked on you? Oh, it's on mute.
We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Technology for you. 10 buttons and I only press 9. As you were talking, I just kept going on to that word prevention. Prevention is one aspect, and it's very important to be keeping ourselves flexible and strong so that we can walk down the stairs and have our mind bright enough to keep our attention on what we were doing. Because if somebody's falling, is it because they don't see it? Or is it because they're so busy that they're not being present? And there's so many reasons why somebody might fall. Could be totally innocent. So in a way, it's prevention, but then there is also the unknown. And it's acceptance, and how do we accept that? And of course, I'm coming from the body aspect. So it is about making sure that we do everything that we can to keep ourselves flexible so we can bend down. So if we are going to fall, we've got the reaction time, and we're not so tender that we'd be afraid to even react. So reaction actually is a good way to look at preventing and keeping ourselves as healthy as possible for as long as we can. And we have so much now that we can do to keep ourselves as healthy as we can within our living situations, or whether there's restrictions or not. Nowadays, there's hardly any restrictions. If there's a desire to improve and keep our health, it's there for us. Mm-hmm.
I think, Deborah, you point out a really important thing. It's something that's been brought up to us as we do the non-intrusive IoT, the ability to actually send messages to say, hey, Deborah, you've been sitting for over 45 minutes. Click here and join the group in doing a 5-minute stretch routine, and keeping it short and tight. So I totally agree with you, and it's my physio background that's really resonating with what you're saying. So
I think we need to connect, Shane, because I do 5-minute little videos to just do that. So it not only works the body, but it keeps us nice and vibrant.
No, I think I'd love to, and I'll get your details from Ingun, but this is something that we're building in. And the issue is that we can't go out en masse and pick anything, because obviously the levels of flexibility, strength, what exercises are given has to be very controlled. So we need somebody with your kind of expertise that helps us from sort of full flexibility to minimal flexibility. But thank you for that.
Simplicity.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Mary Jane.
Yeah, boy, this has set my wheels turning. So just to give you a little bit of background, I started my career 4.5 decades ago. Ingun, I've got my sister from the US on the phone. She's with her oncologist.
Okay.
Let me come
Yes.
off here and come back, okay?
Yes, we'll give Mary Jane later. I would like to take it to a completely different level. Okay, so you see that these challenges are there, and you have that mindset. I see that with Shane, I see that with Han, I see that with Deborah as well. She's, oh, by the way, tech savvy. This lady really created something from, the low yoga classes where the people in the room, and then everything online, and she did everything herself. She's doing amazing stuff. So it's really, really fun to see that. But okay, so you feel that you need to do this app. You're over 50, you're over 80. Okay, so you need some funding. This is one of the big challenges. I think if you look at, older business owners, I think that is something that is a challenge. And then in a marketplace that people probably don't feel it's cool. So how about that? Funding at an older age. A woman, by the way, Shane, that makes it double hard, double tough.
So I'm aware that Mary Jane is here, but I'll just answer that very quickly. I'm Canadian. So Deborah, I'm from your part of the world, West Coast. Vancouver is home. And sadly, this story is from Toronto, which really surprised me. Because the answer I got from an investor is, Shane, it's like this. It's all the young, pretty girls that get the dates at college, right? And so it is sadly that for this segment, we have to go to people that are smart investors that understand this segment and that want to invest in it. Because this work is not known by the majority of investors, who are predominantly men. In addition to that, I'm a woman of color, I'm a woman of age, right? And generally the questions you get are very much around why you won't make it rather than how you will make it. So I do think that this is an issue. I think COVID has helped. I think that there are new funds now coming up that are focused in this area, but it's also highly competitive. And I think this is an area that is going to be difficult unless you can show, you know, demonstrable exponential growth. And it takes time. And I find it extremely frustrating that people say, oh, well, come back when you've got, you know, X number of clients. And you think, well, I need the money to get the clients, not if I've got that many clients, I no longer need the money. So it's an interesting space.
How about you, Han?
I think it is no problem at all.
Okay, teach us.
I have no investors, interested investors found in the Netherlands, but in UK and the United States, I have several investors that like to help and to participate, but I do not want it now because I like to start talking to investors when I have my system live, which will be at the end of this year starting, and I have 200 users. Then they do not have to believe me on my blue eyes, but they can see that the system is working. So I have a stronger position to talk to them. But if you have a good product like me, then there is no problem at all to get money. That's my experience. That is
yes. Yeah, it's good. Well, I remember the story of Paul Tesner at the launch of the Wize Move Society. You know, he created his first business when he was 66. And he said, the only moment that I experienced ageism was when I was looking for funding for my company. And he said, later on, when I started, and he also started with funds that came from other resources than banks or, you know, the normal way. But he said, after that, you know, my clients don't ask how old I am. The suppliers don't ask how old you are. You know, as long as your product is good, you will be fine. But you do need that first step and those first people who join in and who are able and willing to come with the funding. Yeah, thank you.
But I learned that the team is also very important because they are, and I have no team yet. So I like to talk to investors when I have a good team with people around me that are different than me.
Yeah.
And when you have a good team and a good product, then you must start talking to them, not earlier.
Yeah.
I think Pam makes a really good point. I think up until now, we have had investment from, you know, investors that are strategic, but we've also been able to sort of win some competitions and equity-free money. But it's just a slightly, I would say, convoluted route to market. But I'm excited by what Hans says, because I think we've got a solid team and we've got a solid product now. So as we go onward to launch in the middle of the month, we're quite excited.
Really fantastic. Well, I know from my side, you know, with the launch of the Wize Move Society, I had a great team and some great investors. So I was able to do the whole tech stuff done by professionals. So I'm really grateful for that. Mary Jane, coming back to you. Love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I can't address the investment issues, but I recognize what both of you have said in that regard, Shane and Han. And a couple of things. I started to tell you my background. I started my career as a nurse. I'm also Canadian. I was in the Canadian Armed Forces as a lieutenant officer. So So one of the things that I learned, and my mom had a stroke at the age of almost 91. She turned 91 a month later. She'd been active fully from day one, the day before, and then had her stroke. So leading up to that, my sister in New Brunswick, my mom was in North Bay, Ontario, but 1,700 kilometers distance. Vicky was on the phone every evening checking in on mom, It was just a standard call she was placing, and it put a lot of pressure on her, and probably on my mom, though she didn't complain. She didn't object to it. But one of the things after she had her stroke, with the research that I did, is hydration became a problem. And this is a problem in so many elderly people. We were talking earlier, Tatiana, you mentioned it, but also Shane, you did as well. Certainly Han, with the story of his sister, with falling. That so many falls are caused by something so simple as being dehydrated. So those kinds of living lifestyle tips that you're providing, Shane, in that app, I think are really crucial. And there's a lot of false belief that people that feel, oh, I can't drink after 6 o'clock because then I'll be up through the night, and so they go 12 hours practically, or maybe more sometimes, without having any fluid. All of those things really, and we know what happens to the brain if it gets dehydrated. So these are things. Then my husband is really active. He'll be 74 this month. He's had severe illnesses. I've had a lot of caregiving in my life, but one of the things, he's adamant about going to the gym. So as soon as he could, he was back in the gym, and he's been there for 2.5 weeks. Every morning, 5:30, he stands up, 5:45, he's out the door, 6 o'clock, he's in the gym. But what he's learned in the last few years, he's done this for over 40 years, what he's learned, someone has shown him balance. He couldn't stand 1 second on one leg. And now through the exercises he's been given in the last 2-3 years, this guy can, and even after 6 weeks of being away from it, he said, I struggled a little bit on the first day back in the gym. Then I was able, and standing on a ball, one of these half moon balls, doing movement with his arms while he's standing on one leg, 74 years of age. So how important these kinds of movements and lifestyle interventions can be in order to maintain somebody's health. And I could share a lot more, but I'm going to leave it at that. It's just cut you off for both of you for what you're doing. And Han, I have one question for you. I take it that also, say somebody falls and their lights are left on all day, that's going to be a signal. It's not just not using electricity, but also too much. If it deviates from the pattern, I would say then that app you've developed is going to create a signal, orange or red, that something's going on. Yeah. Thank you. This has been really, really interesting.
Mary Jane, we'd love to chat to you afterwards as well, because you're kind of speaking to our product roadmap, which is perfect.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I see you, but we're moving towards the end, so I really would like to jump in. Tatiana, you as my co-host, I know that there's all these things going on in your mind and feel like, come on. So
right, I will share my final thoughts. I think one of the great thing we talk about here, if we step back, is about giving independence to people that are older. And I think giving independence, we give people the ability to have a fuller life, because if you don't do things because someone is doing on your behalf, you start slowly losing your ability to do it, because it's inevitable. You use it or you lose it. At the same time, we don't want to let go of our care, because there are other implications to that as well. So I think bringing independent living and relieving the burden of care I can't see any downside to that initiative. So I would say thank you, Shane, for joining us. Thank you, Hans, for joining us as well, because I think it's really needed what you are doing. So these are my final thoughts. Thank you. Ingun.
Thank you, Tatiana. Yes. Well, what I'd love to see happening is, of course, we're talking about the apps, and we're talking about health, and we're talking about prevention, and we're talking about independence. But what I also see happening, and that is something that I love, you know, there's a group of active, positive, creative people here. And already during this hour, you see all these links and you feel like, oh, we need to talk. Oh, we need to talk. Oh, this can be part of, you know, I think Wize Move Society and the app, you know, that should also be a link there, because we do a lot that can help people. But that is what I love. And that is actually, okay, you know, the thing that we really want to do at the Wize Move Society is we see challenges, we go and create the solutions, we do it together, and each from our own expertise, each from our own background, you know, we can jump in and make it even more complete. And that is something that I just love to see happen. And that is something we really need to see more, that we take that initiative. It's not like, you know, we're 50 plus, so we need to sit back. We are 60 plus or 70 plus or even 80 plus, you know, I just love that. That we are part of that society, we are still part of that economy, and we're not on our way out. We are part of that future, and you can see that this is happening. This is what we are focused on the Wize Move Society. So I really want to invite everyone who is watching right now, if this is something that really speaks to you, then join us on the Wize Move Society. I know that Han joined us yesterday evening, so really fantastic. Love to see you there and love to hear more about your creativity and things like that. So for now, thank you all for joining. We will again be there next week. So I don't have the subject here, but there will absolutely be another great topic. And I think it was the multi-generational workspace. So we'll see you next week. And thank you all for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye for now. Thank you.